Hello everybody and welcome to Mr. Saucedo's YouTube videos. This is our last lesson of Unit 10. So we are now officially going to be done with the entire semester and the entire year. So our last lesson is on how we measure and describe populations. Okay, so how do populations grow and shrink? Well, there are different ways of measuring this. And so population density is one of the methods that biologists use to figure out how much or how many of a particular organism is in an area. So population density is just how many organisms are there that live in a particular area. And so you frequently see things like this with humans. So here's a population density map of the United States, and what do you notice, right? So on the East Coast, it's very densely populated. On the West Coast here, densely populated, and then in the middle, you kind of have very little population density. Okay, what is population density and how do we calculate that, right? So if you want to calculate population density, you need to take the number of organisms per unit of area, and that unit of area is just a unit squared, right? So here we have Florida, again, the population density of Florida. So per square mile, if you have less than one person, like in the Everglades, which you're not allowed to really live there anyway. It's just a swamp. And this is from 2000, by the way. But yeah, you're going to have a very dark green. Whereas if you have a city that is, again, densely populated with lots of people, you're going to have probably more than 5,000 people per square mile. And so, you've got Orlando and Miami and all these other big cities. And so here we have our densely populated areas. So when we say that, though, what we mean is in order to calculate population density, it is always going to be equal to the number of organisms divided by a unit of area. And that unit of area can be anything. It can be square meters. It can be square miles. It can be square kilometers. It can be square, if we're looking at like a box that we made that we put fake organisms in, it can be something like, square inches or square feet or something. So here is how you would do this, right? So we have a rectangle, 10 meters by 5 meters. These little dots represent our organisms. So how would we find that? So first things first, number of organisms, count the dots. So population density equals, there's how many dots, and then the area would be the length times the width of this box. That would be our area. And so it's going to be in meters squared because our unit is meters here. All right, so let's do that. How many organisms do we have? 21. What's our area? What is 5 times 10? It's 50. So we are going to multiply that, or in this case, divide 21 divided by 50, 0.42 organisms per square meter. And it's fine. It's fine to get decimal numbers. It's totally acceptable and fine. All right. Population dispersion. So how are organisms spread out? So population density is how we can figure out how many are in an area. Population dispersion is just how spread out are the individuals. So these are our definitions. We've got clumped, uniform, or random. Clumped being organisms are stuck together in groups, uniform being organisms are spread out evenly, and random being that they're spread out without any definite pattern. So if it doesn't fit into category 1 or 2, it must be random. So just to give you an idea of that, I'm going to show you some pictures of organisms, and you're going to tell me whether you think it's clumped, uniform, or random. Here we go. So we've got picture 1, some nice clumps. Picture 2, uniformly spread out, which should look familiar because it was from the population density example. And then 3, random. So again, pause if you need to, draw this in your notes, label those. And now let's actually get to guessing. What do we think we have here? Uniform dispersion, right? All of these birds are pretty uniformly spread out. They're within a particular distance that makes them kind of impossible to get pecked at by another bird. That's an example of uniform dispersion. Here we have a school of fish. That is a classic example of a clumped dispersion. Okay, literally, we have nothing to compare this to. It's just a sloth by itself. So that is random dispersion. And sloths do randomly distribute themselves. They don't form colonies. They don't uniformly spread out in a tree. Okay. So how do populations change over time? There are 4 factors. Factor number 1, births. So the more births you have, the more the numbers of an individual species will increase in your population. Deaths, that'll decrease the number of individuals in a population. Immigration. Now, immigration with an I is moving things in. So immigration increases the population because it is going from one location to another location. So the population that is receiving these individuals is going to increase. Emigration is movement out, and that is going to cause a decrease. Emigration, think exit. It's moving out of somewhere. All right. And so here we go. We got a wolf and moose population on, it's called the Isle Royale, Royal Island. It's in Canada. They measured how many wolves and moose there were every year since, I guess, around the late 1950s, 1957, something like that maybe, just to see the relationships between the two organisms. So you could see births, deaths, immigration, emigration, etc. So we are going to do that right now, okay? So in class, there's a storyline for this. I'm not going to go over the storyline. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of give you the dots. So again, make sure you are labeling these as you go, right? We want 2 different colors. I'm using blue for moose, and I'm using orange for wolves. All right, so at time 0, we've got 6 moose, 2 wolves. At time 1, we've got 8 moose, we've got 3 wolves. Time 2, we've got 10 moose, we've got 4 wolves. Time 3, 11 moose, we've got 6 wolves. At time 4, we've now got 13 moose, we've got 8 wolves. Okay, now we have some problems here. Now, it's really difficult to show that 2 of the same color are actually on the same spot. So I kind of moved them a little bit apart from each other, but they are both 11 at this point, both moose and wolves. All right, now we have a drop off. So the wolves are now 6 and the wolves are now 12. Okay, now the moose have gone all the way to 0 at round 7 and the wolves have gone up to 13. Now we have the moose all the way up here at the top at 15, and wolves are decreasing, so we've got wolves at 10. Next up, we've got wolves increasing a little bit, so wolves are at 13, and we've got moose at 12. The moose are dropping off again. Moose are at 6, wolves are at 15. Next up, round 11, moose are at 4, wolves have dropped way off at 6. Okay, at 12, we've got moose at 2, wolves at 5. The moose are recovering. We've now got moose at 9, and we've got wolves at 5. All right, next up, and now this is, by the way, this is round 14. We've got moose at 11, and we've got wolves, again, still at 5. So they've been staying consistent here. At round 15, wolves are still at 5. Moose are now at 7. Now the moose are at 5, and the wolves are at 8. And this is our last round. The moose are here all the way down here at 1, and the wolves are all the way up here at 9. Okay, you're going to be connecting your dots together. So all of the blue, connect them together. We get this kind of movement up and down. Orange, connect together. You get these kind of movements up and down. All right, now you're going to be asked some questions about it. In which round did immigration of moose have to occur? So look at the blue. When do you think immigration occurred? And then number 2 is why. All right, so there's only one possible answer, and it is right here, right? At round 7, it's 0. So all of the moose have died or left. Here, we now have 15 moose. That means that at round 8 right here, immigration is the only possible way that we got from 0 to 15 because these were wiped out completely. So there's no way, and it should say in round 7, right? You go from 0 moose in round 7 to 15 here, and that would be at round 8. So they had to have come from somewhere. All right, in which rounds did wolves have their largest decline? So look at the orange and look for the biggest drop-off. The biggest drop-off happens right here at round 11, right? Between round 10 and round 11, we have this huge drop-off. In the round from this question, which was higher, the birth rate or the death rate? Well, what do you think? Death rate had to have been higher in this situation, or emigration occurred. Okay. In what round did moose reach their highest numbers? And then between round 3 and 4, which was? All right, so in which round did moose reach their highest numbers? So that would be in round 8, and that was because of immigration. Between round 3 and 4, which was the birth rate, which was higher, the birth rate or the death rate of the moose and the wolves? So here's 3, here's 4. They're both increasing, so the birth rate had to be higher. In which round were the wolves at their highest? So the wolves reached their highest population in round 10. In which round did the most wolves die? That would be in the very next round, round 11. There's a huge drop-off. Which round had the most moose births? Hint, remember not to include the round that you picked from question 1. So technically, you might think to yourself, okay, this is where we had the most births, but that was caused by immigration, so not births. So which do we think had the largest quantity of moose births then? Well, it looks like the biggest jump is from here to here, like that's the largest one. And so that would be around 12 to 13. So right at round 13, we had the largest amount of moose births. And now assume no immigration or emigration occurred. What do we think is going to happen after this? Oh, it is not going to be good. If we have one moose, it's not going to be able to asexually reproduce. So this is definitely going to hit 0 with no immigration or emigration. And that means the wolves are going to have nothing to hunt. They're going to have one. They have one moose left. So that means that they are definitely going to both decline. All right. 2 types of population growth. We have exponential growth, which is where we have a population that rapidly grows over a short period of time. This is our standard exponential growth graph. Rabbits in the millions, right? Like, again, pretty crazy. Here we have humans up until the year, this is 2000, by the way. So from the 1700s up to the 2000s, again, relatively looking like an exponential growth graph. Organisms that reproduce quickly tend to have exponential growth. Humans, we do not reproduce quickly, but in this portion of the graph, we have exponential growth. Good examples: bacteria, viruses, mice, and rabbits. These are all great examples of organisms that reproduce quickly and have exponential growth. What's the alternative to exponential growth? So the alternative is logistic or stabilizing growth. It's actually, again, the word logistic is logarithm. And it's where you have slow growth, then exponential growth, and then it levels off. So this is a great graph to look at because you can see kind of like how many organisms an environment can support. And we call that the carrying capacity. So it's the maximum level of organisms a habitat can support safely. So here we have Paramecium in a laboratory petri dish. Daphnia, again, in a petri dish, and then fur seals off the coast of California. Off the coast of Alaska. So notice, what do we see? We see it's exponential, it looks like, and then it levels off. Exponential and it levels off. Exponential and it levels off. So this kind of line that we see forming would be the carrying capacity of that particular environment. So this Petri dish can kind of safely fit like 9,000 paramecium per milliliter. This environment can kind of safely fit somewhere between 120 and 130. So let's say like 140 Daphnia in the Petri dish. Off of the coast of Alaska, it looks like there's enough resources and space for there to be about 9,000 male fur seals in that population. Fungi, sheep, seals, these are all different organisms that tend to follow logistic or stabilizing growth. So this is the very last term, population crash. So when you have too many, so when your number of organisms has exceeded the carrying capacity, you get a population crash. And that is when the population decreases, sometimes rapidly, because of a lack of resource or disease. So not enough water, not enough food, or disease spreads and wipes out the population. So this is what you are going to draw in your notes. You have this blank graph. So let's say we've got, like, again, this blue line here, or this blue arrow is supposed to represent like a perfect logistic growth graph. Now, what happens in reality, though, right, is organisms will follow some exponential growth, and then they overshoot. So they have too many organisms for that particular habitat, which causes a decrease. But now there's still enough resources, so it causes an increase, okay? And then they overshoot it, and it decreases again, and then it might kind of keep bobbing around and bobbing around. Eventually, it will kind of reach this nice logistic average. But before that, it will overshoot, and then it'll go down, and then it'll reach the carrying capacity, but it'll overshoot again, and it'll go down, and then it'll overshoot again, and it'll go down. And so this is kind of the pattern that we get. All right, that is literally it. The end of biology, the end of season, I was going to say season 2, semester 2. If you have any questions, please let me know.